All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Our lunchtime tea feels a little more, I guess, continental style, having the afternoon tea. But I wanted to give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about some of our safety changes on campus, our hybrid model process and timeline, the schedule itself, what to expect, and also the distance-only plan and next steps for us. And I put this Zoom in here because I was thinking we've gotten so used to communicating this way that the thought of coming back on campus makes me so happy and excited. So before we do that, I want to talk about some safety considerations and some things that are happening on campus right now, and they're ongoing. So that most of these things will be completed before the beginning of second semester so that your students will be able to see them when they come onto campus, whenever that may be. So we were really guided in these changes on campus by the Contra Costa County Health Services. So our county guidelines, but also state mandates. And so there was a very large booklet put out of recommendations to return to have kids back on campus. And they really recommend this 4 to 6 feet distance. We're being particularly conservative and leaving it at 6 feet between instructional areas. So all of the desks will be 6 feet apart and things like that. We're also going to have a slightly larger buffer around our teacher desks of 8 feet between the first student desk and our teacher desk as well. So when we do that, though, it means that we can only accommodate half of the students on our campus at any one time. And that's really why we've necessitated having these schedules, these hybrid schedules that don't have every student on campus at the same time. It's because safety is our first priority, and to make sure we're getting that 4 to 6 feet, again, 6 feet in our case, we can't accommodate all of the students in the rooms that we have. So that was in many ways a driving force behind why we were choosing these models where we didn't have the kids all on campus at the same time. Now, I feel really fortunate. The district hired a team of specialized consultants, I kind of call them the COVID team, that are going room by room, office by office to see exactly what the maximum capacity is, to see where the desks should be placed, in entrance and exit routes for our spaces like the library and the gym, so that we're making sure that we're maximizing our safety and efficiency in the space that we have. We're also hiring some additional campus supervisors because we know that a lot of these new rules, like masks all the time, are going to need some additional enforcement, especially at the beginning of our return to campus. So we'll have 3 campus supervisors and 4 administrators full-time that are on campus to help enforce these rules, because our mask rules are all going to be kind of a 100% compliance is the only option for us. So just to give you an idea of what that means or what our spaces are going to look like, every space is going to be, again, COVID compliant. And to give you guys an idea of what that looks like, we're changing our traffic flow on campus. Every hallway is going to be a one-way hallway. You'll see a picture of that in a second. We're moving the desks in the room to accommodate for these new spaces so that kids don't accidentally sit too close. We're changing our entrance and exit routes. We're adding hand sanitizer stations like you see here. They're all touchless in every single classroom. And we're going to limit the places where students may congregate in a closer area. So the lockers, the PE dressing room, water fountain, things like that. We're also, again, having these new rules. So the PPE requirements, the face covering masks for all students, staff, and workers on campus. We're also adding plexiglass barriers in spaces that it makes sense to do that. And we've improved our ventilation systems, excuse my typo, in all of our buildings as well. So some of the things that you'll be seeing on campus that we just talked about, again, these one-way hallways, we have the plexiglass shields in our offices. There'll be some in classrooms as well. And each classroom is now going to have a maximum capacity for student desks, and also the reminders about masks and social distancing. We also have some Las Lomas branded reminders about masks as well. And you'll see some large banners when you come onto campus in second semester as well. So before we move on from safety, I'm just going to pause for a second. Are there any specifically safety related questions before I jump into the hybrid model? And I'll stop sharing for just a moment. Any just specific safety questions. Let me check in the chat here. I don't see any.
Chat seems to be disabled.
Oh, all right. Let's see if is it working now?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hi, this is Cynthia Taylor. Can I ask, I noticed there was a sign-in sheet in the classroom. Was that for attendance or was that for contact tracing?
So we actually use it for both. And right now we're doing it because we have small groups on campus. So we don't have a regular attendance roster for those because it kind of varies day to day. So we do use it for attendance, but again, we will use that same list for contact tracing as well. When we come back, we'll have specific rosters for every class that won't vary. So students won't be signing in or touching pens or anything like that as they would right now.
Thank you.
All right, I see a question about the improved ventilation system. So the ventilation system, and I will tell you that what I've been told is it has like a 3-part. One is the filter. The second is the changeover of the air in the room, in every room. So like how quickly the air circulates. And the third one is how often our ventilation systems are on. So normally our air ventilation systems sort of shut off at different times, like if there's not movement or use of the classroom, and we've set them so that they are all on the entire time, the entire day. That way we're continually recycling or cleaning that air. The second thing is, again, the changeover of all of the air in a room. And what I'm told is in 30 minutes, all of the air has been replaced in any one of our traditional size classrooms. So any of the regular classrooms, within 30 minutes, all of the air has been replaced. That means that for right now, if there's no class in there, by the time the next class is in there, if it's a 30-minute, like during lunchtime or things like that, it will all be replaced. And the third one is on the filter. And I actually don't want to say anything incorrectly about the filter, but it has a higher rating so that it is filtering out more air particles. But I'm happy to get more details about that if you'd like. Okay, I'm starting to see some questions about the hybrid schedule, so I'm going to jump into that in a second. Okay. Yes, okay, filing in and out of the classrooms. So actually that is one of the things that our COVID consulting team has been helping us with, and they suggest having a way that kids come into the room and then the way they're dismissed also by rows, kind of thinking back to your elementary school days where it's like, okay, row 1, giraffes, you can leave. Row 2, you can leave. We're actually going to go back to doing that so that kids don't walk past each other when they are exiting the room. When they're coming into the room, they're supposed to go in and directly to their seat. So that should minimize the amount of time for the entry and exit where they'll be overlapping each other. All right, I'm going to jump into the hybrid schedule. I'll go back to sharing for a second. All right, so the first thing I want to say about the hybrid model, and this is really something that came through strongly in the board meeting on Wednesday, is that we actually don't know exactly when we will start the hybrid model because it's going to be dictated by our COVID numbers. So right now, as many of you know, we've gotten into the purple tier, top tier, and what the board said is that we wouldn't start the hybrid model until we had gone to the red tier for 2 weeks. And so we can't say exactly what date that'll be, but we do know that it'll be no sooner than the second semester because we're not looking at dates until then. The way I'm describing it is we are getting the rocket ready for launch, even though we don't know exactly the launch date yet. And just like a real space shuttle, it'll be whenever that safety window opens up. So we'll be ready on the first day of semester 2, but we know that practically it's going to be determined by those COVID numbers. And that gives me a lot of assurance that we're going to be waiting until we have that safe number, but we're going to be ready to go and ready to act as soon as that happens. So again, kind of review of that timeline that we're working on. So the governing board has been looking at these models, and our team, our educational team of teachers, the consultants have been working this whole time. When we get to November 18th and we made the proposal to the school board, that was really a culmination of a lot of hours of work getting ready and a lot of learning from the feedback that parents and students and faculty gave us on our original version of hybrid, which we had developed in the summer. I actually feel pretty fortunate that we had this semester of distance learning so that we could revise that hybrid schedule and make it, I think, a little even better for the next semester. So the board did review it on the 18th and voted to approve it unanimously. So we are sending out, and you received yesterday, hopefully, from the Ed Services team, your intent to return survey. So you'll have 2 weeks to look through that, and then you'll be asked to return it when we get back from Thanksgiving break on December the 2nd. So that gives us from the 3rd until the 18th of December to really build our master schedule. And when we get into what the schedule will look like with the different groups, that'll make sense as well. And then in the second semester, when we're in the red tier for 2 weeks, we will start our in-person or hybrid model schedule. So I also want to remind us, especially for those of you who have kids who are coming to campus, we have already started bringing students to campus in small groups, either with academic or social emotional support. So some of our wellness groups have been meeting. We have academic tutoring in the morning during academy and some sessions after school. We have some flexible learning spaces in our library for students who just need it for internet access. And we're also starting some extracurricular activities. So we did leadership, did a drive-through where kids could come and pick up leadership shirts and things like that. So we have been working on having kids back on campus this semester. And again, it's really just been beneficial for us because we've learned a lot about student behavior and how they act while they're here, so that when we bring them back in larger groups second semester, we'll be even more prepared to do that. So I think that sometimes it's helpful for me to understand, all right, when you were making this schedule, what were the things that were your top values? And I know that I talked about some of those last week in my tea with Tiffany, but I really want to say that we want to keep all students with their teachers and classes as much as possible. We don't want to put them in another system. We don't want to move their schedule a lot and create a lot of disruption for our students. We heard that in the surveys. I heard that in my student meetings. Really, kids feel a great connection to their teacher and to their classes, and they don't want to be moving. And so that was a really high value and priority for us. The other thing is we wanted to create a schedule that has flexibility. If I've learned one thing in this last 8 months, it's that everything seems to change, sometimes almost daily, and we wanted a system that really is responsive, and that if a student needs to quarantine, that they can continue learning while they're doing that. And this schedule does offer those things. So let's jump in and look at it. I'm going to start just with some vocabulary. Honestly, I never used any of these terms in education before this semester, but now there's so much talk of synchronous, asynchronous, remote synchronous. I was like, what are these things? So I've been getting some questions and I'll just start very basic. I apologize if this is redundant for some of you. Synchronous learning just means at the same time. So it actually can mean a live class where students are in the classroom. That is synchronous learning. But also if they're on Zoom, that is a form of synchronous learning as well. And we are calling that remote synchronous learning. Asynchronous learning means students are working completely independent of the teacher. They still may be working in groups. They're going to be accessing curriculum on the website, on Canvas, through videos. They may be even doing student work groups, but they will be doing it independently of the teacher. The next two things are things that are brand new for this year. One of them is our cohort C. And this is a new term that we're using to describe students who next semester decide to stay on completely distance schedule the whole time. So they will never come to campus. We're calling them cohort C, or distance only learners. And the last thing again is our Cohort Academy. That's a new program that we instituted this year where students meet with the same teacher, the same students every week in a non-graded social emotional connection space. And we're going to continue that in the hybrid model as well. So this schedule looks a little bit different from a staff point of view, but Tuesday through Friday is exactly the same. And then Monday, again, builds in that cohort academy and also builds in, if you see those dark blue rectangles, those are times to support our cohort C students. So specifically designated time for our distance only students. Again, we don't see that on the student schedule here because this is for our A, B cohorts, but our C cohort would have those opportunities as well. So let's talk through the basics of this schedule. Very basic. The class periods are 75 minutes, so 5 minutes shorter, but that builds in a little extra time for passing periods and between classes here. Each day is going to start at 8:30. Now, this was something, especially our students, but in surveys was very strong. People really liked the later start. And actually, it's wonderful timing because we know that there was that change in California law that was actually, we were going to need to move our start time to 8:30 in another year. So we're using this as a good opportunity to start that now and give it a try, see how that'll impact the rest of our schedule. The Monday schedules, very similar to right now in some ways, in that it is fully remote asynchronous. So again, the students have a schedule. They'll still start with their cohort academy. They'll still have time to do the work asynchronously. And again, this also builds in time for our staff to do training, to do professional development, meet with different students like our cohort C, and for our students who are returning to campus, this gives them another day to complete that work. So the school, we're going to continue to provide flexible spaces like our library for students who need to come on campus during remote days. We're working on what that's going to look like, but we want to make sure that kids have access to resources every day, whether that's sending things home or providing them here at school. We also are allowing our immunocompromised staff. We do have some staff members who have personal health issues that are going to prohibit them from coming to campus. And so in those cases, they will be live streaming into their classroom, and another teacher would be in the room with the students, just helping with tech issues and supervision. So again, continuing on, well, so this is the schedule. What's it going to look like for my child? Well, here's what's going to happen. We're going to divide our entire student body into two groups, cohort A and cohort B. We're doing this primarily alphabetically, but not exclusively. And you might be, why not just split it alphabetically? Well, we have some classes, like for example, our jazz band class, that it doesn't necessarily make sense to just divide it in half. Another group is perhaps French 4 and 5 are in the same class period. It makes a little more sense to divide them 4 and 5. So we'll be doing that, and that's why we do need a little bit of time on a master schedule point of view to make sure that we assign every student in a way that works well for them. We're going to keep families together. So for example, my brother and sister, we actually have different last names. So we would have to be scheduled to make sure that we're in the same cohort as well. And we'll be doing that for families. You don't even need to ask. We're going to prioritize keeping families together. So once the student body has been divided into cohort A and cohort B, students will come to school on alternating days. So if you're a cohort A student, you will come to class on Tuesday and you'll see all of your teachers live. You will have regular classroom experiences. And then the following day, you will be at home. You'll check in with those classes on your computer, and then you will work on asynchronous work or whatever the teacher asks you to do. And then you'll come again live on Thursday. Again, same thing, you'll come through all of your classes, and then the next day you'll check in with your classes on the computer, but you'll be at home working on those days. So each child will see all of their teachers one time for the full block period per week, but they will actually connect with their teacher on Zoom or live every day, Tuesday through Friday. So one of the things I heard from those surveys was that having asynchronous days that are totally self-directed were very challenging for students. So again, we really want to minimize that. Even when your cohort is not at school, they're going to check in with every single one of their teachers at the beginning of class, and the teacher is going to decide what both groups are going to be doing throughout that day. Now you'll also notice here we've done something a little different with our lunchtime and academy periods. We know that for academy, that's independent, it's great for tutoring and getting help with your teacher. So we want those groups to be as small and personalized as possible. We also want to minimize the number of students who are having lunch at the same time so that we can make sure we're enforcing those social distance regulations even during free time like lunch. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to divide that cohort again into smaller groups of Academy 1 and Lunch 2 and Lunch 1 and Academy 2. So students will be assigned one of these lunch periods. They do not get to choose, and they will be assigned one of these academy periods, and that's what they will go to every single day. That way, only a quarter of our students will be eating lunch at one time, which makes it much easier for social distancing, and only a quarter of our students will be seeing their academy teachers at one time. So again, those groups in the classroom will be kept very, very low. The teacher schedule will go back and forth so that students have an opportunity to see all of their teachers at least one time per week. So shifting gears a little bit to the all remote option, again, cohort C. So cohort C is going to remain in their existing schedule. We're not going to pull them out and put them in Fuel Ed. They're going to stay with their existing class with their existing teachers. And they're actually going to be grouped the same as all of the other students into a cohort A, cohort B model. So there are lots of things for our all hybrid students, or excuse me, our all distance students, that's exactly the same as hybrid. So on Mondays, again, they're going to be fully remote, just like the other students. They will have an opportunity for some more personalized check-ins with their teachers built in, but otherwise they will be remote the same way. And during the Tuesday through Friday week, so if they are with group A, they will kind of do what group A is doing. The difference is when group A is live on campus, they'll be watching a live stream version of the class. And when group A is remote, they'll be doing exactly what group A is doing. So we're really trying to give cohort C as much as the same experience as all of our other students, while keeping them in the class and protecting their health and safety by giving them an option not to come into campus if they don't need to. So again, the dark blue squares are the opportunities for additional help for our cohort C students to check in with their teachers. So what's the next step? What is the process for you as families? So over the Thanksgiving break, as we're all sheltering in place practically, you'll have some time to talk to your family, to your kids, and decide what is the best option for you. And in essence, you have two choices. One, the hybrid model, which again is going to be on campus every other day, working with your same teachers, same classes, or fully remote cohort C, again, same classes, same teachers, but it will be a combination of live stream watching the class and asynchronous learning on those asynchronous days. So those declaration forms went out yesterday. I'm going to send another email with those this afternoon. And you have until December the 2nd, that's the Wednesday we get back after break, to decide what is the best for your family. You do need to fill out the survey for each of your children, and you'll be able to do that, and like we said, when we get back from break. Oops. So again, we're keeping on this timeline for you to know what are the next steps if you want more information. There's going to be a district-wide parent education question and answer webinar on the 30th. That's the Monday we get back. Also, every site is holding these parent forums. So we have this one, our Tea with Tiffany. I'm also adding one on the 30th in the morning for families who can't come to the evening event at the district. And we will also be presenting at the PTSA meeting on December the 1st. So if you are waiting until the last minute, you just cannot decide and you still need some help answering some questions, you can come to the PTSA meeting on Tuesday evening, December 1st. We'll also have Jasmine Hernandez, one of our associate principals there, who'll be able to answer questions in Spanish as well. So I think I have, honestly, it has been so heartwarming, the comments that people have made in gratitude for the teachers and their hard work around this time. And I just want to say that I am so appreciative of it. It's been an amazing process with the support of the community. And you're completely right. It is a challenge for the teachers to manage all three of these groups at the same time, but I feel strongly, I feel very confident that my team can do it. I know that they are jumping in with both feet, and although there is a lot of learning that we need to do in the next month, they're ready to do it. So I really appreciate again all of the well wishes and gratitude from the community to and from our teachers. So thank you for that. So there is another component of this that will be impacting you as families, and that is a change to our instructional calendar. As you know, when winter break ends, we normally have one day that the staff comes back as sort of a planning, and we are proposing to the board and to AEA, our union, to add an additional day to that. So moving our professional development from March 12th and move it to this earlier date so that teachers have a larger opportunity to interact with technology, to be in the classroom, to see how everything is going to work before kids come back. So if that is approved, we will let you know about that so that you know when you can expect your students to be working on their schoolwork and getting started with that. So if you would like more information, again, I am recording this video, which I will post on the website, but there's also email information that's going to come out. So there was an email yesterday. I'll send something out again today with some FAQs, videos, some screencasts, just going over specific parts of the schedule. There's also a lot of information on our website and on the district website. So all of the board presentations, if you'd like to watch and learn more about the context, the schedules themselves are there, the video presentations, and also some information around COVID reporting and what to do if you have symptoms, what to do if you test positive. So some decision trees there. And then again, the last most important thing is just to really talk to your family. I know that these are really personal decisions, and decide what you want to do for the next semester and go ahead and fill out that family survey. So I hopefully have gone through the majority of the big issues, but I do want to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. And I will say, if you need to leave, or if you have friends who are interested in hearing a presentation or have specific questions, I will be having, again, these 2 additional meetings when we get back from Thanksgiving break, just to do some questions and answers with people. So this will be in the email that's going out this afternoon as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so that I can answer any of the questions that you might have. So let's see. Amy, I know you've sort of been monitoring the chat. Would you mind just asking me some of the questions that are coming up, and then we can take additional questions from the group?
Absolutely. So a couple questions I've seen were questions for clarification around cohort A, B, and on the days where they are remote synchronous. Their questions are really about how long will the students be engaged in the classroom, and I think maybe a clear explanation as to what happens on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday. Is it same lessons, different lessons? A little bit more in the lesson planning.
Absolutely. Well, I'm happy to talk about that. And really, one of the great things about our teaching staff is that they have wonderful expertise and can be very flexible. And I think that a great part about that is it means that they're going to adapt every day to what their lesson necessitates. Something that, as an outsider, might feel frustrating is there's not a specific number of minutes where kids will be engaged synchronously and asynchronously. So let me give you an example of what those off days or the asynchronous remote days may look like. So when you're not here on campus, you are going to start your class with everyone. So at the beginning of fourth period, every single student in fourth period, whether you're sitting in the classroom or you're on the Zoom screen, is starting together. And the teacher is taking attendance together, the teacher is welcoming everyone together, and the teacher is giving instructions, directions to the class, everyone together. Now on some days, the asynchronous group, or excuse me, the off group, will leave right after that. So for example, I was a history teacher. So what I'm thinking is, oh, I'm going to give instructions. I might give the beginning of my lecture for about 15 minutes. Again, the students at home are going to see it as a screen share, the way you guys saw my presentation, and the live students will see it on the board. And then at the end of that, we're going to have a class discussion. So the students who are in Zoom are going to log off and they're going to answer those questions in writing for me. And the students who are in the classroom are going to engage in the classroom discussion, and I will grade them on participation and things like that. On the other day, the groups will switch. So again, I may begin the class with an instructional lesson, a demonstration, maybe demonstrating a lab, and then the class will work either independently on Zoom, answering questions, doing practice problems, answering in writing, or they may stay in class with me live and do those same activities together. Now that's one model. Another model is the teacher may say, you know what, actually today I'm going to be doing a lot of interacting and it's going to be through the screen. Kids are going to be working on a Google document. So actually, I'm going to keep the entire class together for the entire period. Now, I was just observing an English class the other day, and they were working on a Google document together. It wouldn't have mattered if the students were in that class working on the Google document, or if they were at home on Zoom working on the Google document. The teacher could in real time see what both of those groups were doing at the same time. So in those cases, it would be to the discretion of the teacher. Do I keep them all in class with me, or do I let them go? So again, I recognize that it's a little frustrating to say, well, I can't guarantee a particular amount of time. Teachers are being asked to spend at least 15 minutes checking in with kids at the beginning of class, again, taking attendance, giving instruction, making sure everybody knows what to do. And then when the lesson allows for that, leave the kids in class. And when it's better that they work independently, go ahead, let them work asynchronously while you're focusing on the students in class. Now that decision is really going to drive how quickly you advance lessons. So if the students online and the students in person are doing the same lesson and just switching, that's one thing. If the teacher is lecturing, let's say it's coming up to the World War II test and they're giving a lecture for the full class period time, they actually won't need to do that lesson twice because they're doing it one time and both groups of students are seeing it simultaneously. So when they go to the next class period, they can do the exact same thing and cover even more of the material that way. So I think that the flexibility and talent of the teaching staff is going to allow us to maximize this and make it as beneficial as possible, but it's going to mean that it looks a little bit different every day for the students. For you as a parent though, here's what I would say. Your child needs to check in at the beginning of every single class and will be working with that teacher for at least 15 minutes. So the message I'm sending to students is every day is a school day. There is no off day or asynchronous day where you're not doing schoolwork, and there's never a day that you really don't need to be able to interact and be available on your computer or in person. That was a very wordy answer, Sorry about that. Amy, next one.
So there, I think to address instructional minutes would hit a couple of them. One around the 8:30 start versus the 9, and then also the reduced instructional minutes that students will be with the teacher in relation to AP courses.
Mm-hmm. Good questions. The first one is, it's true, we have the exact same instructional minute requirement that we've had before, and we will be hitting that with the 8:30 start and ending at 3:20. If we did shift it to 9 o'clock, which I know there were some requests for different things, we would have to move our end time to 4 p.m. And that, for a number of reasons, was not seen as very, I don't want to say worth it, but when the teachers and students were talking about what that would mean, it wasn't seen as the right trade-off. So again, that's why we're going with the 8:30 as opposed to the 9, to continue to maximize those minutes and keep us done before 4. Now, as for the loss in instructional minutes, actually, there really won't be fewer instructional minutes with this model as opposed to the model we're currently on, because the model we're currently on, teachers only need to do 75 minutes per class per week of synchronous learning. And in the hybrid model, even if they do the absolute minimum of in-person teaching, it's one class of 75 minutes plus the 15-minute check-in. And so that would bring us up to 90 minutes, not even including any of the other asynchronous work. And I know my AP teachers, they're never going to do the minimum. They're some of our best teachers. And to say that they would have a 15-minute check-in and let kids go is almost unheard of, that they wouldn't be providing a really robust experience for them as well. So actually, it's not a decrease, it is a slight increase in minutes.
And just for clarification, I've seen a couple questions about cohort A and B. Will they get new teachers and schedules? If you could just review that.
Absolutely. They will not. We are keeping students with their current teachers, with their current schedules. The only changes that we may need to necessitate would be things that we would normally do in the middle of the year. So if students are requesting a level change or something like that, which again, we do every single year at the semester, but we are not changing student schedules in the hybrid model.
There is some concern around cohort C and their level of interaction with teachers and their peers.
Yeah. I'll be honest, coming up with a robust option for our all distance learners, our cohort C, has been a continual challenge of balancing needs. On one hand, we really want to make sure that our kids have a really robust educational curriculum that's designed and easily implemented online. We need to balance that with their need and desire to be connected to their community, to their students, peers, their teachers. So we could have gone with a fuel ed model, which is designed specifically to be online, but that would almost completely eliminate those connections that they have with their peers and their teachers, because it's such an independent model. So we decided the best would be to keep them with their current teachers and classes. And that's why we built in those additional time periods during the week, so that that are designed just for cohort C to connect with their teachers and with other students in cohort C, so that there are additional opportunities for connection there. I wish there were an ideal version, and I really think that for most students, the hybrid model is going to be the best. It allows them, again, the most interaction with their peers and with teachers. And we are trying as best we can to get cohort C to have as many opportunities for that as is feasible in the current schedule. Again, I would consider the hybrid model as much as possible if I could. I know for many of us, though, these are health issues. They have nothing to do with choice. And we are committed to serving those students who can't come back and make sure that they are getting as much as the same experience as their peers.
So I'm still seeing some questions around the cohort C. Would they have, And this is a little bit more with kind of the specifics going, would they be able to come on campus for extracurriculars? And then what if a student selects cohort A or B, and then they decide they want to go to C, or vice versa?
Great questions. I'm going to answer them in reverse order because it's easier. So for all students, let's say you sign up for hybrid or for cohort C, we're going to have a 2-week kind of add drop period from whenever the schedule actually starts. So if we start February 1st with the hybrid schedule, you'll have 2 weeks to decide, okay, actually, I do feel okay and I want to come to campus, or the alternative, I don't want to be on campus, I want to join cohort C. So no questions asked. In that add drop period, kids can switch back and forth. After that period, we're not going to allow the switching back and forth unless there is a specialty case. Now, for example, if you have chosen the hybrid model and there is a health need or change in your family or in yourself that necessitates you going to cohort C, of course, you can do that at any time, no problem at all. It really, where it becomes more challenging is after those 2 weeks, if students want to go from the all distance model to the hybrid model. So that's where we're really going to say it would be something we're not going to do unless there were an emergency case for it. The second questions were about, oh my goodness, Amy, I forgot now. I'm so sorry. You're on mute. Amy, you're on mute.
Sorry, could a student in cohort C come for extracurriculars?
Yes. So I think that that's really going to be a family decision because it depends why you're choosing cohort C. You know, if you're choosing cohort C because the child has an immunocompromised situation, a family member has an immunocompromised situation, then coming back to school to interact in the sports, that would be a family decision. It is not going to be something that we prohibit though. So if families feel that it's safe for them to join the sports camp or the extracurricular, then absolutely we would allow them to do that.
If you don't mind me answering a tech question, I'll jump in for one. There was a question regarding, will students need to bring computers to campus? Yes, they will need to bring either a laptop or a Chromebook. And if a student does not have a device, then the school will check one out to them. Students will not be sharing devices. We will not be using a CART model for using Chromebooks in the classroom or anything of that sort. So before students will be coming back, obviously there will be a communication out to families to identify who will need a Chromebook, for example, if a student's been using a desktop at home, so that we can get the students the devices they need. Another question. You've answered a lot of them. Let me see if I've missed anything. Oh, okay. So this was once the hybrid model is implemented, if our county moves back into purple tier, what will happen in terms of distance learning?
So the board did not specifically say what they would do on this, but I think that their action up until this point leads me to believe that we could go back to the distance learning model again if our numbers increase. I think that is actually a good thing about the schedule that we chose, because the students are staying with their same class and their same teachers. If we need to pull back and do all distance for everyone, we can do that very easily. We could do that really with a day's notice. You know, if we find out that there's an outbreak. It also means that if we do have an isolated situation at our school, an outbreak at Las Lomas, which I don't even want to think about, but if that were to happen, we could very quickly pivot from this hybrid model back to our distance model. Again, almost immediately, we would be able to do that because the students' classes and teachers are not changing. So it builds in a lot of flexibility if we need to do it. It also builds in a lot of flexibility on an individual level. If a student, just a single student, needs to quarantine, they can go kind of with the cohort C group and be distance learning and not lose out on that education for the 2 weeks. They'll be with the exact same class and the exact same students doing the exact same activities. So I think that there's a lot of flexibility both institutionally and at an individual level with this schedule. All right.
And the question that I've been waiting for, thank you for asking, is if a student is test positive, what will happen to the class, or how will that be addressed at the school level?
Yes. So I have learned so much about contact tracing. And actually, we are hiring someone at the district level to help us with our own site contact tracing. So what happens when a student gets a positive test, or a teacher or faculty member? There's a couple of things that are going to happen. One, there's going to be a daily screening for staff and for students on their phone, a questionnaire asking them about symptoms, different things like that. And if you get a positive result there, right, you get the red X, it'll give you a phone number to call. And we're working with a group company nurse where they will ask you some specific questions. So for example, you might have flu symptoms because you have seasonal allergies. And you know that. So when you call the nurse, they're going to walk you through some questions, and they will be the ones determining whether or not you need to quarantine. Now, again, let's say you have a positive test result. So we know you have COVID. You will, of course, fill that out on your questionnaire. But if you don't, the county is going to be notifying the school, once we resume in-person instruction, of a positive test. So what we do is, again, we're going to have a system within our district to notify and do our own contact tracing. So we'll be notifying the class and the teacher and the students that there was a possible exposure. We're not going to disclose any names because it's against the law, but we will let you know yesterday in one of your academic classes, you may blah, and give those details. Now, what I learned about contact tracing that's actually pretty interesting is it's not just any contact with a person that requires you to quarantine. It's actually 15 minutes of time with a person within 6 feet. And that's with or without a mask. But that means that it is possible that there could be a COVID student in a class and the entire class may not need to quarantine. It's going to be based on the teacher's seating chart. So if a student is seated far from another student and they are never within 15 feet, or excuse me, 6 feet for 15 minutes of that student, they will be notified of the possible exposure, but they will not be required to quarantine under our current county rules. So that is there. There's also a really handy resource, and let me show you one moment. On our website, excuse me, on the district website, it will be on our website as well. That really walks you through when should I get tested for COVID, and what should I do if I get a positive test? So this is our sort of decision tree about how to know when it would be good to get tested. Again, this is not with exposure. This is if you're having these symptoms, what should I do? Okay, do this. If you have any of them, you don't come to school. You let us know at the attendance office, and that way we're keeping a list as well to follow up. And then it will be the decision of, do you get tested or do you not get tested? So if you choose not to get tested, which is absolutely your right, you have to remain at home. Again, still engaging with the learning, but for at least 10 days and 24 hours after the symptoms have gone away. And for parents out there, this is exactly the same, interesting for other immune systems like the flu, 24 hours with no symptoms, without medication that we use for other contagious viruses. If you do go ahead and get a test, and you have not been around anyone, you can actually return to school after the 24-hour period with no symptoms as well. So those resources, again, are on the district website, and there's 2 different decision trees there to kind of walk us through that also.
Along the lines of testing, will there be testing for staff, for students, and in what manner will notification occur? Will it be a phone call, an email?
Mm-hmm. So what we're currently looking at, we can't require testing for students, but we can for staff. And we are piloting a model right now where staff will be tested every week. We're piloting it in the district office in December. So we'll see how that is. And it's a test that we will, again, be administering every week for staff members. And students, we can recommend a test. We can definitely let you know when there's been an exposure, and that information will go out via email. There's a letter that explains, okay, you've had a possible exposure. This is the context. These are the precautions that were being taken at the time, and next steps for you, again, especially if you start exhibiting symptoms or things like that. So that will be going out by email. All right. I'm reading the comments also.
I think jumping back to cohort C, there's questions about whether it is view only stream or whether it will be interactive and students will be able to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. So again, it'll be dependent on what the lesson is and what the teachers are doing. There will be interaction between the teacher and cohort C. However, it depends a little bit on the activity. So for example, let's say a teacher is doing a lab and demonstrating it. During that time, the camera, which is going to be on an iPad and really on a stand, a rolly stand, they may not be able to ask questions during that time, but the teacher will check in with them afterwards, after the demonstration or at the end of class in whatever system that the teacher sets up for them. Now, in some ways that mimics what it's actually like in school. If we all think back to our classroom experience, there were times when the teacher would be lecturing or might be doing something and you weren't encouraged to ask questions throughout the demonstration also. But the reality is, the interaction will not be as constant via the computer as it will when the students are live and in person. Again, we're doing the best we can to make sure that we mimic the experience as closely for our remote students as our in-person students. But I strongly encourage you, if there's not a health or safety reason and you are able to return to campus, I encourage you to seriously consider it. For a lot of these reasons.
Unless I really missed one, I think you've hit most of the topics that were in the chat that I've seen, but if I've missed it, please someone go ahead and enter it back in.
Mm-hmm. Or if people want to, you can raise your hand and ask a question as well. We have a few more minutes left if there's other things that haven't come up.
I have a question, but I also have a trumpet player, so who's in class. I'm just curious what the what I know that said that 11.1 was the return to extracurriculars, but I haven't heard or seen much of that from many of the students. What has been brought back, and what is the plan to bring things like, like chemistry club or whatever, or some of the school classes, the co-curriculars that could in fact do something on campus?
Yeah, so we were originally planning to bring clubs back starting after Thanksgiving, but since we went into the purple, many of our club advisors have said that they would prefer to wait. Right now, the only group that is still coming to campus through this week that's more of a co-curricular is our auto club. They've been meeting in the auto shop in evenings. Our leadership class has brought students back, but for very specific things. So to pick up leadership t-shirts or to do a short activity with the leadership teacher. Most of our clubs have not come back yet. Amy, can you think of any? I don't think any of our other clubs have come back yet, have they? I know that you're overseeing that.
No, not yet. There's been some discussion, but then the numbers, we're delaying at this point. But there are some questions about band, PE, band, wood shop. I will, and that reminded me, there is one, auto shop has come back. The auto shop club has come back, but that's the only one. But there's concern about how is PE going to work? How is the band classes going to work? Those specialty courses.
So PE is going to come back in, again, the reduced numbers. And our PE teachers are actually already trying to maximize the things that they can do outside. We do have spaces, indoor spaces for our gym classes, like the large gym and the wrestling gym, which actually provide much more than 6 feet of space for our students, especially when the classes are cut in half. So it'd be like 22 people in the entire gym. But again, with the physical activity, we really want to be thoughtful about what the kids are doing, and the teachers are really trying to maximize the time that they are outside. Now, the other specialty classes like band, and Deneen, I see you here, band is just a bugaboo because you cannot split it in half. I've already started talking to our band director, Brittany Schenkel, about this, about how we can divide so that there are members of each section in both of the groups so that they can continue to play the same music that they would intend to play. She's already saying, though, that she may need to look at what is the best way to do that. What if you only have one percussionist? What if you only have one woodwind? How are we going to look at that? So when we get our survey results back from families, that's going to give us some information as well, because we'll know how many students we will be working with live and how many are going to be in the all remote cohort C, right? Because that's going to change our ability, and it's going to change what we can do based on those room sizes. So we're already working with her to start planning, but every one of the specialty classes is special, and we have to work with the teacher to see what is the best and most conducive when the group is divided. And like we talked about with smaller groups like jazz band, we're actually playing around with the idea of keeping the entire group together and putting the entire group in A or the entire group in B, and having them play in a different space because they meet in 0 period. There's actually a bit more flexibility in the rooms, that the room offering that we can give them. So that's what we're hoping to do with some of the smaller groups.
I did clarify that students will not be using the locker rooms or changing for PE, but there was a question specifically about the weight room.
Mm-hmm. The weight room is another challenge. Fortunately, Coach Langero is extremely experienced and flexible. So his current plan is to remove the free weights and different things and put them actually outside as long as weather is permitting. We did have a small group of PE students who were coming in for credit, and that's what they did during that time. They took the weights out of the gym, or excuse me, out of the weight room and used them outside. So we may need to do that. And then when we are inside, again, in particular to what those numbers look like, but the weight room is very difficult and challenging. And we know that from our community as well. The gyms are some of the first things to close because of the type of exertion and the things that are happening. And so our weight room will be particularly cautious and try to keep them outside as much as possible.
I think you have gotten most of them, Ms. Benson.
Can I ask another band question?
Yeah, of course.
I know we've talked before through PAF and some of the other groups about possibly letting the band, the wind ensemble, jazz concert, you name it, but like going to the stands and sitting like 10, 15 feet apart to practice, or maybe doing that during an academy period. Has there been any movement on that?
Yeah, so we are actually still considering that, and for next semester with hybrid learning, depending on what our survey results are, we may be able to do that as well, keep the entire band together in different ways. Also, I mean, Ms. Schenkel is definitely open to bringing the students back while we're in distance. She's actually been coming to campus to help just for academic support. Again, our hesitance has been band instruments are like choir. They're some of the worst things for spreading. So there was some discussion that while we're in the purple tier, that it may not be wise for us to engage in some of those activities. If we go back down to red though, we'll be able to start our hybrid model, and then everyone will be able to come back to campus and we'll be able to do those things. And Dina, I know you're very active on PAF. We've been talking about the, oh my goodness, I forget what they're called that go on the
Bell
end.
covers.
Thank you, bell covers. I kept thinking instrument socks, and that's wrong. The bell covers that, purchasing those to, again, just have an added layer of protection, kind of masks for our trumpet. And we think that we can require those for students as well, and possibly pick up some of the cost.
Do you have any insight? Sorry, I'm you know me, I can ask questions all day. Do you have any insight like into some of our neighboring districts? I heard that on the district call the other day that San Ramon Valley Unified, something like 70 to 80% of the respondents on their survey have elected to stay distant, which is so conversely opposite of what we're seeing here. Do you have any insight into their decision-making process? And I mean, I think a lot of parents that I've talked to them like, what do they know that we don't know, or vice versa, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'll speak frankly, that was really surprising to me when I had heard that, especially since they were very much like us. Their initial survey data was the reverse of that. Again, at this point, I'm really just hypothesizing, but I will say the San Ramon version is very different from ours. We're keeping everyone in their classes. They're redoing their entire schedule. And so there may be a thought that you would have less disruption if you stayed in the distance model, where for us, we're trying not to disrupt anybody, whether you choose the distance model or the live in-person model. But again, at this point, I would just be kind of guessing, because we're all working from the same information, the same numbers and data. I know that our superintendents collaborate constantly about this. We're always hearing about the discussions that they're having and the co-planning that they're doing. So they went in a different direction, kind of like redoing their schedule and moving everyone around. They had their reasons for doing that. I feel fortunate that we're not going to have to, but I think that probably impacted people's decisions. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Two more questions that popped up. One is regarding staff and what is your perception of their overall feeling about coming back? And then the other one was a little more specific about drama and how will the students be split up for that?
So I'll start with drama. So again, drama is one of those classes that has some multiple levels in each class, like drama and advanced drama meet in some of the same sections. Stagecraft, same thing. So I've been working with Mr. Justice to say, would you prefer to have them divided, like this is regular drama is now in cohort A and advanced drama is in cohort B, or would you like them intermingled so that they can continue to work collaboratively? Right now, he actually thinks that there's a lot of benefit of keeping all of the students intermingled, because there's been a lot of mentorship, especially there's been a lot of change this year, and we want to minimize that change, especially for our drama students. But we're working with the teachers to make sure that those decisions are most fitting for their curriculum and what they're trying to do with their class in second semester. Overall, with the faculty opinion or feel about it, I feel really good to be here, because never do I doubt teachers' commitment to our students. I think that when concerns come up from faculty, it's really coming from a place of how do we continue to serve all of our kids? How do we keep everyone safe? How do we protect safety and also give these social emotional supports? And for some of our faculty, they haven't been on campus a lot since March. So I think that as they come back to campus and see some of the safety precautions, the things that we're doing and what the classrooms look like, I think that that's going to help with some concerns that they might have or anxiety they might have. But again, it's always been in the service of how do we help our kids and keep everybody safe. And so we've had a number of meetings. I mean, I look at you, Amy, via Zoom, but we've had a number of meetings with faculty, and at this point, a lot of the questions we're getting are very logistical. Okay, how are we going to do this? When we're screencasting, how do we answer questions? They're really getting their head around, like, what's the planning we need to do so that whenever this happens, we can be as ready as we can. And I'm very proud to lead that team right now.
And I see one last question just regarding a sense of the preference for hybrid versus distance model, distance learning for our particular school site.
So the survey just went out last night, so I actually haven't even seen any of the initial first day responses. I anticipate that when we get back on that December 1st, the November 30th, December 1st, I'll have a better idea of kind of the way things are trending. I also know, though, I'm anticipating that some families may wait until right when it's due to answer it and to really think it through. So I'm trying not to make any decisions or any predictions until we actually get the data in. I'm not counting the votes based on the polls. That's my plan. But I do want to say I really appreciate everybody staying on, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I'm going to stop our recording.